Well, joining me now from the debate spin room, Biden Deputy Campaign Manager and Communications Director, Kate Bedingfield. Kate, welcome back to the show, and welcome to another debate week.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Let me start with, you guys have been very open and sort of honest about, yes, you know the first night didn't go well, you guys are ready for this, you expect incoming from everyone, you plan to take the fight to Trump. Let me ask you this. What if they don't attack the vice president? I mean, it feels like you guys are almost hoping everybody on that stage does. Am I reading too much into this?
No. You are, yes. I think there's been a lot of discussion of the idea that he is spoiling for a fight, and the only fight he is spoiling for is a fight with Donald Trump. And look, if his opponents come after him and attack his record, then certainly he's going to be prepared to defend it. He's not going to take distortions of his record lying down. But, you know, if there's one thing that Democrats are unified around, it is a desire to beat Donald Trump. Joe Biden is going to make the case tonight for why he's the guy to do that, and why, you know, as president, he represents a dramatic change, a fundamentally new direction from the kind of leadership that we have in the White House right now. So you're going to hear him take the fight directly to Donald Trump tonight.
No issue exposes sort of these ideological fissures like health care. How does your team believe the defenders of Obamacare, essentially, right? There's about half of the folks on that stage last night were for, you know, modifying the current system versus those that want to totally get rid of the current system. How does your team feel as if those defending the system, modifying the current system, did?
Well, you know, Joe Biden, that's for the voters to decide how they did last night. Joe Biden's going to make the case tonight for building on Obamacare, building on the Affordable Care Act. You know, it was a truly transformational piece of legislation that fundamentally remade healthcare
I believe he called it a BFD.
Country.
Yeah, he called it a BFD last time I checked.
He did, and he was absolutely right about that. And you're going to hear him talk about that tonight because, you know, people want a leader who's going to be straight with them on health care. It's one of the most important issues facing working families in this country. Vice President Biden believes we need to build on Obamacare. We need to build on the hard-fought progress that we won. And I think, you know, there's a suggestion, which I just find sort of baffling, that somehow fighting for the Affordable Care Act is incremental. I mean, I would ask those folks where they were in 2009 and 2010, you know, when we were fighting to get this done and get this change done. This is transformational change, and the vice president believes that we need to build on it rather than starting over from scratch.
I know you've seen the reports that some other candidates on that stage have been looking back at Biden's record in the 80s on various issues. The last debate, you had an unearthing of some of his stances on the 70s. I know one of your positions of pushing back is just saying that isn't very relevant. When do you think those positions of his are relevant to this debate?
Look, he's always happy to defend his record. I mean, he's been at the forefront of change in this country for 40 years. You know, he's somebody who wrote the Violence Against Women Act. He fought to get the Voting Rights Act extended. You know, he has spent his career fighting for change in this country. So he's happy to defend his record. But the question is, what are you going to do for people now? That's what voters want to know. That's what debates are about, you know, laying out your vision for the future. And so you're going to hear him, you know, he's laid out a bold climate change plan. Yeah. He laid out a criminal justice reform plan. And so you're going to hear him talk about his plans for the future, because that's what people want to know. They want to know who can beat Trump, who can get Trump out of office, and who has good ideas to move this country forward and make real progress for people. And so that's what you're going to hear him make the case for tonight.
Kate, do you have a weird problem with your candidate in that it's both, you have a double-edged sword, which is many people view him as the safe choice. Is that a good place for you to be as a candidate, or a bad place to be in the Democratic Party of the 21st century?
Look, I think when you're the candidate who is, you know, according to the last round of polling, the only one beating Trump in Ohio by 8 points, I think that's a great place to be. People want somebody who can beat Donald Trump. Joe Biden can make that case. Joe Biden is the person to do that. And so I think that that's a great place to be, frankly.
But the idea of pragmatist, it seems like you do take issue when people refer to that as, oh, you're for an incrementalism, or you're for pragmatism, or you're for the safe choice. Do you think that's a bad, you don't want to have it described that way?
Well, I just think it's not accurate. I mean, I think if you look at his record, if you look at his lifetime of fighting for change, if you look at the change that we were able to get done under the Obama-Biden years in the White House. I mean, you look at things like the elimination of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. You look at the vice president speaking up for marriage equality at a time when political pundits were telling him that that wasn't a smart thing to do. I mean, he's somebody who has been on the cutting edge of fighting for change in this country his entire life. And so yeah, I reject the notion that somehow there is a progressive, moderate divide and that Joe Biden falls on one side of it. I think voters are looking for somebody who stands for their values, who shares, who they believe has good character. I think they know Joe Biden, they know that's him, and they know that if they put him in the White House, he's going to fight for the things that matter to them. And so that's the kind of case that you're going to hear him make tonight, and that's frankly what you're hearing him say throughout this race as he's campaigning in New Hampshire and South Carolina and Nevada, across the country, in Iowa. You're hearing him make that case.
Kate Bedingfield, we will be watching tonight. Thank you for making time for us this afternoon. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. I appreciate it.
You got it. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.